AI officer. Who'd have thought that role would exist just a few years ago? But it does. And my information is that Philipp has been in the SAP world for more than 50 years with lots of, I got to say, really interesting roles. So cross-product engineering, architecture for the intelligent enterprise, and S4 HANA platform engineering as well. I also discovered in my research, and this is perhaps an offline conversation, Philipp, that just because he's not been busy enough, he also holds a PhD in computer science, where, if I get this right, he invented something called a gamification modeling language, whatever that might be. So with that, I guess with that somewhat ad hoc introduction, Philipp, please let me pass the floor over to you. I know everyone's fascinated to hear what you've got to say. Please, over to you, Philipp.
Alrighty, cool. No, thank you so much again for having me. And yeah, thanks also for the introduction, Tim. Much appreciated. You picked out a few interesting nuggets there. Maybe we have later on a bit more time to chat about those if you are more interested. But let's focus first on SAP Business AI and our strategy and where we are today. Just to set quickly the stage, I mean, I assume in general I don't need to explain to, in particular, in such an audience here, as to why that whole generative AI trend specifically matters. But just to set the stage, right? There's this one amazing study, as I think, from Morgan Stanley, that took all the various industries, broke it down, right, in the various LOBs per industry and what people do there in terms of tasks, right? And they broke everything down based on their salaries, whether it's bottom line optimizations or top line revenue ambitions that you can fuel with the help of AI. And they came through this massive number of 4.1 trillion incrementally of economic impact in the next 3 years. And just to relate that number, that's roughly the GDP of Germany, right? So just imagine you put the entire economy of Germany annually in the next 3 years on top of our today's economy. So obviously there's something huge. And why is that? So why is AI? I mean, AI is around for 50 years, and of course, always in the last decades, AI always held the promise, right, of making things faster or more efficient, right, or come up with insights that were otherwise hidden in sheer volumes of data, right, not processable for the human brain to find patterns and interesting insights, and so the question really becomes, what has changed, right? And generative AI specifically, and this is also why in general there's the impact will be so huge, is every year there's a buzz technology like blockchain or metaverse and other things, right, that we are kept busy with looking into, but only if there's a true change in the economic equation, then technology starts to matter at scale. And two things have happened. Number one is, with every past technology trend, somewhere the marginal cost of something went down. For example, with the introduction of the internet, the marginal cost of the distribution of information went down to zero. Or with the introduction of the PC and the microchip, the marginal cost of compute went down to zero. And now, with generative AI, the marginal cost of content creation gets almost down to zero. And this is why this has this huge implication, because things that may have taken months or weeks can now be done maybe in minutes or seconds. And that's a huge impact, and where also this economic value is coming from. And then, of course, the second piece why it is also so disruptive, back to AI is not a new thing, is, of course, we have these large pre-trained models. So you can actually now, for the first time ever, do something useful with AI without having huge amounts of data at your disposal in order to train a specific model that is tailored for one task, where you need a hell lot of data for in order to train that model to come up with something useful. These pre-trained models, I always say, like in GPT, the P is the magic letter that changes the way how we deal with AI. And when it comes to AI for SAP, the good thing is also it's not a new topic for SAP overall. We have started the AI endeavor more systematically, I would say, and like introducing that with before Gen AI, we still have today 130 scenarios, usually referred to as narrow AI scenarios across the portfolio, you know, in S4 and in Concur and in Ariba, and much more scenarios in there. And 27,000 customers today are already using that on a monthly basis. So every month we see 27,000 customers using at least one of our AI scenarios in production being used by our customers. And you see some of them here, how they benefit from it, whether it's reconciliation in finance and increasing cash processing through a faster and higher accuracy. In accounts receivables, for example, or Chobani, who is using that also again in finance, who have massively reduced their time spent on working on expenses, or also in the supply chain, for example, CF, large automotive supplier in Germany, which is using an IBP, for example, our forecasting capabilities for demand planning and operational planning, and can do that much faster and much shorter cycle time, run more planning scenarios, for example, thanks to already existing, this is all pre-Gen AI impact done with AI that exists in the portfolio today. Now, when we look into specifically generative AI and also how we reshape the strategy a little bit is we centered the whole messaging around of SAP Business AI around relevant, reliable, and responsible. And I want to talk about these 3 R's, no pun intended here with R3, to take them step by step and what that means. And first of all, it's relevant because it's embedded. So this is what we changed also a little bit strategy-wise compared to the past. In the past, we were more coming bottoms up, like really from the technology and from BTP and the platform, and then embedded into the applications. We turned that strategy systematically around because we are first and foremost focusing really on the application scenarios. And here are a few of those that on top of the already 130 that we've delivered in the past, these are all the scenarios we have just delivered in the last 2 quarters in the various products. So they are available in the products right now. There's around about 40-ish cases that have been either delivered. You see that here in ERP and finance, for example, in procurement, supply chain with visual inspection. Lots of, we started with job description generation and interview question generation and success factors in the last November release of success factors, but now the May release is around the corner. The preview is already deployed. In May it goes GA. We have first customers on it. Sales and marketing, tons of things. And then, of course, also on the BTP in SAC, right, where you can now talk in natural language and formulate your queries in natural language, or the generative AI hub. I come to this in a bit to talk about some of the technology components that are both the underpinnings for these embedded scenarios, as well as what you can use as a customer on BTP to either extend the embedded scenarios or build your own ones in case you want to build custom applications, custom Fiori applications, for example, on top of BTP. So just a few things here, right? So these are the things that are delivered. I've mentioned already the job description generation scenario or assisted interview preparation, right? Scenarios like you are late to a meeting. You don't remember like what was the candidate's CV or the candidate's job. What was the job actually about that this candidate applied for? If you have many maybe open vacancies, and then it helps you, right, to based on the job description quickly tailor the questions, and you can quickly catch up and have a very targeted conversation with that candidate. We also, for strategic sourcing, we call it Ariba category management, delivered the first Gen AI capabilities and production that help if you're opening a new category or you're reviewing suppliers, right, for new suppliers in an existing category of your spend. Sorry, was that a question, or otherwise maybe? All right. And to do the market research, right, and say like, okay, what is the competitive landscape, supplier power, many the various aspects you have to take into account as part of the due diligence can be highly automated, for example. Or what we also have delivered is as part of various products. In the past, we did it predominantly on invoices where we had a very good model. But now with the help of GenAI, we expanded that to all sorts of documents. For example, in transportation management, to read any kind of delivery notes, for example, or consignment orders, purchase orders, sales orders. And we also can do now, so we can do and basically avoid the data entry into the SAP system by almost fully automatically scan paper-based, and with paper I also mean email and PDF, automatically extract all the various master data and the line items and so on, and put it into the system for a huge range of documents in the SAP and non-SAP context. And then, and we can do it now with more than 40 languages out of the box with some of our services here. And another highlight that we just released in Q1 is, for example, enterprise service management. And I just wanted, before we I talk just too much, I'd like to show it to you so that you really also see how we are thinking about that. So the scenario with enterprise service management is, imagine you are an accounts payable clerk, usually sitting somewhere in a shared service center. And you know how that goes, right? You have like all these cases open here in this demo. I have 165 cases open, and I mean, you know the trick, right? You usually have too few people, they're overloaded, they have to deal with this. The suppliers are yelling because they have not been paid or need to do tons of things, like simple things like updating their bank details, up to they are maybe saying they want to take legal action because they have not paid them. And the good thing is some of those things can be actually fully automated, like very trivial tasks. You see this here. We have an automation success rate already of 32% of all those cases. And those 32 cases, if you see that, right, they have been completed with a high confidence, meaning above the 90 mark. Customize that, obviously. They say like, okay, those things could have been were automatically solved with AI, but that still leaves us with a host of manual tasks, which are here, right, 68%, which either require really manual intervention because AI couldn't help, or at least AI has helped to prepare that case in order to make you faster. So let's look at some of these prepared cases to see what we need to do and how GenAI helps to accelerate the entire process. So usually, right, it starts already with a little summary we can generate with AI, which you know how that is. Maybe another person has worked on this thread before, so you don't know what it's about. Now you get a nice little summary without reading through all the various emails and so on and so forth, right, that are directly here part of enterprise service management, and with all the attachments, right, PDF-based invoices that are floating around and so on. So really catching up, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 minutes. Now you can catch up just in a few seconds here, because you immediately know that. We also know the business context. So for example, we can extract the service I mentioned already. We can extract the information directly out of the document, and based on this, automatically also see where in the business process is this currently stuck. So you obviously got your goods received, but also the invoice receipt, but it's stuck and a block for payment. And now the idea is also, when I have no clue what I now do with that, I can actually ask Joule, our generative AI copilot, which tells me, okay, this invoice is blocked for payment. Do you want further information? Which I can do. Just need to quickly minimize Teams here. Give me a second. And in this case, it gives further things. I just want to make it very simple here, and we could further investigate or rectify the issue. In this case, I just want to release the payment block, and you see also how Joule then interacts with enterprise service management. So the main GUI basically here to continue. And I don't want to continue here further, just for brevity here. And then what I can also do now that I release the payment block, so the payment's going to be issued by the bank. So now I can actually click send an email to the supplier, and it doesn't generate you just an arbitrary email, but it generates you email with the business context, referring to the invoice and the amount and the payment terms that have been associated in that specific transaction. And I can also now refine that response, can make it more casual and maybe the tone a bit more submissive, and I maybe prefer a longer email, and I can regenerate that email now. And as you see, right, it provides even more details and business context as to this transaction, so that the supplier has an easier time also to reconcile that again against their system with respect to the buyer side, right? And I apply that here and just send it over. And that email, imagine that, right? Constructing that email, going to the various Fiori apps and various transactions, maybe in Ariba, and fiddling all of that out, right? In order to construct it can easily, again, take 20, 30 minutes. And now you can do it in seconds, right? And if you multiply that with the numbers of cases, it can be a huge efficiency and productivity gain there. So that's enterprise service management. And as part of this demo, I also showed you Joule, and I just two aspects here on Joule. We are basically bringing Joule. We started in SuccessFactors and S4 Public Cloud. We bring Joule to all the various applications of SAP this year. And Q2 now comes private cloud, and Ariba is coming in Q3, and Field Cloud is coming Q3. What is really the nice thing and the beauty of Joule, it's not 10 Joules in each application. Tim, you mentioned my previous role of taking care of integration across SAP. It's one Joule. So basically, we are ensuring that everybody's using the same framework, the same platform service on BTP, and all the applications are plugging into that. And that gives you an amazing capability, because no matter where you are in SAP, if you're, for example, in SuccessFactors, and all of a sudden you have a finance question, well, you don't need to switch context. You can do it out of SuccessFactors and ask your financial question or your supply chain question or whatsoever, as long as the respective applications are connected via the central platform service. And you see some examples here, right? There are navigational scenarios supported, transactional scenarios supported, analytical scenarios, and way more. So it really Joule becomes a blend and a new user experience, how we believe people will work with the system. Now, that is kind of how we focus on, the business value and really designing it to be out of the box available as part of the business applications. But we also need to talk about reliable, because as you know, as we are using generative AI, there are a couple of complexities to deal with. On one hand side, there are tons of large language models available, and it feels like at least some weeks there are 10 new LLMs coming, and they're outperforming each other, right? So, and we early on said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And these LLMs, anyway, one day, because that happened in AI the last 40 years, they anyway going to be commoditized one day. And that trend is happening already at light speed. So we said, we partner with all of them. We partner with all of them because at the end of the day, when we talk about our embedded scenarios, we really don't care what the large language model is, as long as it provides the right output at the lowest price, at the best performance, in a safe and reliable fashion. So this is why we have this plethora of partnerships that we've established with all of them. And as part of our SaaS applications, you actually don't have to deal with this complexity. We take care of that, and we select the large language models depending on the task, because some are better at some tasks and worse in other tasks. And it really depends on the context that we do. Now, the second challenge is, as we all know, no matter which large language model you pick, they all have deficiencies, such as, obviously, they don't know your business data, they don't know your real-time data that is stored in SAP. They don't know up-to-date recent information because they have been trained up until a certain point. They may hallucinate and come up with things that may sound plausible, but actually are factually incorrect, and many more problems. Now, the thing is, you can do and engineer around all these limitations. And this is where our AI foundation is coming in on BTP. So what we basically do is, on BTP, we build dedicated services, and one of them is called AI Core, with a capability called Gen AI Hub, the Generative AI Hub, or HANA Cloud Vector Engine, that allows us to build and use the various techniques that are emerging, like prompt engineering or retrieval augmented generation, fine-tuning, and build them in a way that you stop hallucinations, or that you bring in up-to-date business data in a data privacy preserving and secure fashion, so that your data is always secure, doesn't leak, and is not used by third parties to train a large language model. So we are guaranteeing that no of your business data is used to train a third party model via our integrated approach here. And this is how we build these things together. And almost as a byproduct, you also get the same. So we built this we built it kind of for ourselves, right? For all the various applications, and all of the applications go through this AI foundation. Now, you can also then benefit from it if you think like, oh, the SAP standard applications, they are not sufficient, or maybe you want to extend them a little bit because you think about generating the emails in enterprise service management I just shown just a little bit differently because you have different requirements. You could do that on the BTP. So why would you then go to the BTP instead of directly going to Microsoft Azure and use OpenAI, or you go to Amazon and use their Bedrock service, or you go to GCP, use their Model Garden, whatever is your preferred infrastructure vendor. Now, here's the thing. If you think I want to build my own application with LLMs because they're not in the standard, the first thought that most people have is, well, I'll just take an LLM. I take an open source LLM like Llama 3 or Mistral models. Those are the current leading ones. Or you think like, oh, maybe I go directly with OpenAI. And this is like, if you want to, I use the metaphor of building a house here. That's like you're starting on the first floor, that you get like pre-produced from the vendor. Now, you can maybe on the first floor, you as a company, your company, maybe you can build like 3 stories on top before your CFO comes to you and asks you like, okay, when will you ever come out of research? When will you ever deliver something that's meaningful to the business, right? Because the problem with that approach is you have to deal with a lot of things. You need to, if you decide for an open source model, you need to procure and operate the hardware. Maybe you need to host, optimize the LLMs, do capacity management. You need to get all the security and data privacy right, and like all the various things that distract you from delivering business value. Now, then you may think, oh, well, I go with a hyperscaler. And that's like immediately going up into the 5th floor because the hyperscalers are solving some of these challenges I've just mentioned in a very sophisticated fashion. And for most of us, that's a very legitimate option, obviously, because they're doing a great job. Again, you can build a 3 stories app on top. So you end up with an 8 stories tall application in the same amount of time as before, until again, your CFO gets mad at you and what you're doing the entire day. Still, this approach has a couple of challenges because you may have a potential lock-in. If you decide for Azure, for OpenAI, you're essentially locked into Azure. If you decide for you're essentially locked into GCP. If you decide for Anthropic, which is currently one of the leading models out there, you are essentially locked into Amazon. And then you may ask, like, okay, that's all good if I have it on Azure, but how do I safely integrate this into my SAP processes in the data? How do I deal with business authorization? So if a user logs in and wants to use my app who is authorized for, let's say, purchasing group A, is not authorized to see the stuff in purchasing group B, for example. So how do I bring this together? And then you may figure out, well, the SAP folks have solved all those things for you, because guess what? We have to solve it for our own embedded scenarios in SuccessFactors, in Ariba, and so on and so forth. And what that brings you is if you do it on BTP, because the BTP sits on the hyperscale, immediately lifts you up on the 20th floor. So you can build your 3 stories app on top, ending up with a 23 stories tall building in the same amount of time as before. Why can you do that? Because all these things have been taken care of. It comes with great identity management, authorization integration with the apps is there, full master data integration, the one domain model is there. We have stable APIs for lifecycle management as part of S4, SuccessFactors, and a few more. And of course, you can tap deeply into the metadata and the data model of SAP. And the core capability to achieve that is what we call the generative AI hub. That helps you to either embed it in the business application or side by side on the BTP to build your application in a much shorter time before. For example, GenAI Hub allows you to easily switch between all the frontier models, the big ones I've mentioned, as well as some open source models. If you, as I said already, if you want to change the way how we designed, for example, the embedded scenarios in SuccessFactors, you can do it via the generative AI hub as well, because we acknowledge that every customer wants a slightly different version of how we thought about it. Again, if you want to build your own custom apps with deep application integration, you can do it as well. And obviously accessing the data in a secure fashion, also piggybacking off existing authorization concepts. Think about all your PFCG roles that you've invested into in S4 and so on. You can leverage those as well. That leads me finally to conclude also to responsible AI. And this is also not a new topic because already in 2018, SAP has issued or published a very comprehensive AI ethics policy. And because while all these things are changing, the technology is changing super fast. There are new tools, new large language models, and foundational models, new services, like almost every day, right? It's sometimes very overwhelming of what's happening currently in the field. So these things, they will change all the time. But there are a few things that shouldn't change all the time, and those are our values. And in this AI ethics policy, already 2018, we defined like 6 core values on how we believe the world should look like in the AI age, such as we value human agency and oversight. We work very hard to address, biases, in particular with generative AI now, and discriminatory language, and also ensure transparency and explainability so that always, for example, take Joule, when you get an answer from Joule, you can always understand like, oh, this comes out of this transaction, or it comes out of this document, or it comes out, so that you always can follow up and look into a deeper detail. And how do we ensure this? Of course, we deploy a couple of technologies underneath, but there's a few things we cannot solve with technology as of today. And this is why all the scenarios I've mentioned already are going through what we have internally called an AI ethics governance body, where our general counsel, our chief information security officer, chief diversity inclusion officer, chief data privacy and protection officer, all those people are on, and we go with all the cases through that we've published and also the hundreds that are still on the roadmap this year. We go through with all of them through this ethics steering. And we also do sometimes, some cases, we don't do them because we cannot ensure these values and the associated qualities underneath. Good. And with that, I talked already too much. I just want to open it up for Q&A. Otherwise, I think we're running out of time. And here, here for conclusion, I have a couple of more resources available to you.
I'm going to ask on behalf of everybody as we throw to questions, would you be able to share a copy of this with us? Because there's an awful lot of stuff and some great resources on this back page. So we'll say, please share that with us. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, sure, absolutely. We can share the entire deck with you. That's not an issue. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And look, hey, look, thank you so much. I've got loads of notes and that was fascinating, but I'm not here to answer the questions, even though I've got some. Why don't I first throw out to actually the people in the 2 rooms that we can see online. If anyone's got any questions in the room, you know what, don't put your hand up, just shout out. Thoughts, comments, questions, guys. What do we have for Dr. Herzig here?
Sorry. Matt Pritchard, Head of IT Strategy at SA Power Networks. I'm interested to understand a little bit more how you see this fitting in with the rest of the AI landscape. A lot of organizations have already deployed. For example, you are using Copilot across our Microsoft suite, and we're using Azure ML services across our data lake. I like the idea of having a central hub within BTP for custom-built applications, but do you see this existing side by side with those other tools? Or do you see this essentially replacing those other tools?
No, it's an integrated approach at the end of the day. I don't see this as a competing approach. I mean, we are partnering with all of them together, and we are striving to integrate those specifically on the platform. I mean, on the as a service side, just for the out-of-the-box consumption in the apps, it's a little bit different. So that's then on our terms, basically. But if you choose the platform services, that's an integrated approach with the respective. So we are not replacing it, or because at the end of the day, like take, for example, the LLMs, or that when we are not building an own large language model, right? We would complement then with, for example, an own model for ABAP code generation, because that is something that the others are very poor at. But with respect to, taking the existing frontier models and so on, that's a totally integrated approach. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Thank you.
Floor is open for everyone, either in the rooms or just on the virtual attendees. Don't be shy, guys. Please don't bother raising your hand. Just unmute and have a conversation with us, please. It seems like everyone's a little bit. Oh, now hold on. I think Alex has got a question for us. Go ahead, Alex. It's not like the Australian people to be shy, I assure you.
I wanted to ask.
Hey, Ben.
I just want to let you know what happened is that this moment we are basically working on developing a dashboard for our real estate apartment sales, right? Because what happened is that we are selling it very, very fast, but we want to make sure that how effective each channels, for example, our what I call it, marketing is, whether we need to pursue, we want to target which one is basically giving us the best return. So we basically building a report, the dashboard based on the accounting cost that's hitting certain lists of GL account and basically connect to all REFX things. How can AI, in this case AI, the one that you just presented, help building it? Because it's been like when we do it manually, it takes weeks of it, it's not months and months as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, I mean, we need to look into the details. Because that really now depends on how your data architecture also looks like and so on, and how you aim to pull the data. I'm not sure if I already understood the question. If you build a
Probably
dashboard,
let me make it simpler. Is SAP is basically heading to with a generative AI to be able to help us generating a dashboard that we want based on, let's say, plain English language to say that can you generate this dashboard based on this blah 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 REFX numbers and this the account that's basically collecting all the costs, that kind of stuff.
No, the other way. It depends. Not so you can create dashboards in terms of ad hoc queries done by generative AI, but obviously the prerequisite is that you have centered then also with SAC your data, so it's available within SAC, so that you can then, for example, formulate natural questions towards your data, which then comes up with charts which you can put up on a dashboard, for example.
Right.
So it's like really different. So it's but you probably talk about generating it based on the raw data and transform.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. We're open because
Okay.
at this moment we are pulling all the data out of into BW, and then we basically generate the dashboard out of it. So am I hearing hearing that basically in order to get the AI behind this generative AI, we need to get the BTP plus SAC/DataSphere to basically to get it
Not
running.
necessarily DataSphere could be part of the data. So that we have another discussion. I could have another talk only about the data and the DataSphere strategy and with enterprise SAC. But yes, SAC would be then for the dashboarding. That's absolutely the prerequisite, and we are building all the Joule capabilities and also the natural language queries into SAC for the end user. Yes.
Okay.
And that is just Ask capability as part of SAC that has been already shipped, and Joule is going to ship in SAC for a deeper, conversational context with your data is shipping in Q3.
Yeah, the reason I asked that because I attended the Sydney BTP innovation sessions, I think about a month ago, and there's one of the video being played with the natural language to basically saying they show me this chart or that dashboard regarding that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's shipped already, and that we have shipped in Q1.
Second question, because we are able with all the demo that you show, does that mean that with SAP in the future there will be no more T code, there's no more command because everything is going to be plain English? I would like to post an invoice or that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. I would love to get rid of the T codes for sure.
Manualist SAP in the future. Yeah. Okay. I think I've got my question.
It wouldn't be SAP without the T codes, though, would it? Really? I mean, let's face it.
I don't think SAP would ever be able to move away from T codes.
We do have a question.
There I have a different opinion, but yes.
We've actually got a question in the chat, which I might read out verbatim to you from our friend and colleague, Mr. Mark O'Brien, CIO of City Pacific Mining. I'm going to read it verbatim. A lot of buzz at the moment is about generative AI, but of course, there's been a lot of other AI tools around for a very long time, especially the ones that are focused on optimization or anomaly detection. Yeah, so it's identifying interesting correlations. I know that they've traditionally gone to third-party tools for some of this type of work, and he's wondering that if SAP is planning to integrate any of those AI tools into the offerings beyond just the Gen AI stuff we've spoken a lot about today.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are still doing narrow things as well, but we turned the whole thing a little bit around because, there are two complexities with traditional, and I have been doing this in the last 20 years. The problem really is the data, right? The problem is the data in terms of coming up with a clean data set, a clean distribution of the data. And even if you have then all the data, right? It is hard for a vendor like SAP, right, or was in the past, to generalize then, amongst coming up with a model that is really useful for multiple tenants at the same time and not just works for 3 tenants. And then the 4th customer comes and because the data distribution is entirely different and so on, different industry whatsoever. So it's really a challenge. And what we did, we introduced this in 2020, is our product development schedule, where meanwhile more than 20,000 customers have given us the consent to use the data to do exactly that on behalf and train it as a service, so to speak, right? Of course, we can give insights on how we do that, right, in order to preserve data privacy and more. And this is how we also approach narrow AI for more classical problems where optimizations or numerical problems are concerned. And this is how we do it for the most part. What we are not offering anymore necessarily is to provide our own data pipeline and traditional ML frameworks and platform services and so on and so forth, because we believe you can use those from other vendors very well if you want to build your custom things and so on. But what we're going to do is we had to turn it around, because if this whole model of we do something on a little bit of data and then give it to you for this just doesn't work in an application context, just doesn't scale, because the economics of scale work against us. That's the problem with the traditional AI approaches.
Yeah, understood. Well shared. We've got a hand raised in 1RR. If you guys would like to unmute and talk to us, please.
Hey, sorry, Matt Pritchard again. The deployment of Joule into your landscape is pretty exciting, and it makes me wonder, does SAP have a vision for what the end state for the user interface will be? And I mean, specifically, Joule could potentially replace a number of disparate Fiori apps for sort of the average user, and that's potentially a really good option for your not everyday users who just will have general interactions across multiple apps, from procurement to lead requests to finance. That's sort of the direction you're going.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will not go that far. Some do, I don't. That this could entirely replace like classical click and point user interfaces. I don't go that far, because I still see value in buttons, at least to a certain extent, because a button, if you know what you're already doing and the context is clear, and pressing a button is still faster than typing what you want in natural language. So I definitely see still classical interfaces as well. But yes, you are right. I fully agree that if you can well express yourself in the language, instead of like, oh, where is the like maybe then filling out the application might not be that hard, but finding the application, right, getting there, having the right context, like all this upfront cost you have in order getting there, I think that's the game changer here, right? You can just express your intent and then the system comes up with it. Of course, it needs to be really good before that disruption happens, so that we so it will be a longer process, so to speak, where of course the conversational experience need to really, like on an everyday basis, need to outperform in terms of efficiency, the more classical approach. Otherwise, right, this will not happen. But then once that happens, I will definitely foresee that the usage on the classical UIs will go further down, and then one day we may even replace those. Yes, I see that. I see this happen. While again, I don't think that all the GUIs will go away, because let's say you make maybe the leave request for the employee you do, but like if you want to approve that as a manager, you don't want to write approve all the time. If you can just push the approve button right on your phone, for example. So those things I definitely think will stay.
I was thinking, we spend a lot of money on user experience and human-centered design, trying to cater to users who don't interact with SAP every day. And I potentially see this as a way to stop them having to jump between multiple applications and spend that time finding what they need. But agree, I don't see it replacing it for power users.
Absolutely, exactly. And at the beginning, it will be more like, oh, you can just like not correlate it yet, or like tasks, right, which require multiple applications to collaborate. I think that will be the next phase, right? Right now, it's more this integrated approach, and now you have an HR question, now you have a finance question, now you have a supply chain question, and it can do all from a single pane of glass. But the next phase of it will be then, and we are working on this as well, we're going to do a couple of announcements at Sapphire, is really then AI agents underneath. So this is also what we do already underneath Joule, is that you then have not just the conversation, but you really have an HR agent that understands, right, the employee profile of the user, and a travel agent that is, right, understanding Concur. You have a finance agent, and then these agents talk to each other to solve a more complex problem with each other by correlating and doing like, hey, do you know that answer to this particular parameter? Like all these things we are working on. We've got to show a couple of things at Sapphire around that one as well. So that's kind of then the next phase of complexity and tasks you can solve in a conversational experience fashion. Yeah,
that's really exciting. I assumed from your demo you must have had large action models already under the cover solving for some of these problems, and that could be a really big step forward.
Yeah, we avoided the term large action models because I think that term already went away. I mean, we do this already with like clock in, clock, like take HR stuff, like clock in, clock out scenarios, or filing a leave request and so on. So you converse, right, and then boom. I mean, we call it transactional API. So it's not just information retrieval, right, there, but it's really a transaction where then it goes also in a structured way, like now give me this parameter, give me this parameter, give me that parameter, so that you then can legitimately call the API to file the respective request or transaction.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Cool. I see we have another question in the room. Rajiv, you've got your hand up. Please unmute, pose your questions.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to know the capability in terms of reading an image, or let's say reading a drawing and converting them into functional location tags or equipment in the plant maintenance module. Like, do we have any capability there?
In which area? Sorry, I didn't get
in
it.
the enterprise asset management area. So reading the drawings and converting them into tags, or let's say reading some images and
the team is working on such. Yes, we can provide insights. The team is working on such cases. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
No, it's not yet available. That's so not yet available, but there's work going on there.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Awesome. Do we have any more questions? Any more questions from the floor?
Adrian Stagg from McGrath-Nicol. Philipp, are there limitations in the solution architecture? So is there things that you must have? So are there things that you must have deployed, such as can you use it? Can you use the capabilities now in a 2SL S/4HANA public cloud environment?
2SL with CBC or Solution Builder?
Public cloud, so S4 public cloud. So
I know, but there are two. They will still, and I don't want to go into that rabbit hole, but there are two variants.
No, let's not go down that.
We need to look. I would need to look into the details, but no, it works also with the two system landscape. Just by here, I mean, we are converting all customers right now with programs right onto the three system landscape. Yes. But there is what you more need. It doesn't. The prerequisite is not so much as for public and whether it's 2SL or 3SL. It's more like what is not available is why I'm thinking about what's not available, of course, in 2SL is the additional dev tenant. So if you want to build some embedded scenarios with ABAP Cloud and Steampunk, right, that wouldn't be available in the 2SL. So for this, you would need to go on and convert onto the three system landscape version, where you then would benefit also from what we call ISLM. So that's the Intelligent Scenario Lifecycle Management API with a deeper integration I've mentioned, where you then can tap into the Gen AI Hub to build also Fiori apps within S4 Public Cloud. So for that, right, beyond the pure low-code, no-code in-app extensibility that, of course, also exists in the two-system landscape today. And other than that, it's not so much on S4, it's more really on your enterprise landscape more with respect to some of the suite qualities we've introduced, like identity management being there, of course, on the latest version with respect to identity and authentication services, identity provisioning, master data integration if you need master data, like all the suite qualities that we've introduced also as part of the intelligent enterprise work that we have been doing over the last couple of years. Just give you an example. Take Joule. If you have the latest identity management with global user ID and everything in your landscape, then turning on Joule and SuccessFactors or S4 Public is a 5-minute thing. If of course the identities have not been harmonized, first need to clean that up, right, and get this all in. So otherwise, this whole hey, I log into Joule from SuccessFactors and it also understands S4. That doesn't work if the identities. It doesn't work if the identities are not harmonized, right? Because if it authenticates you in SuccessFactors with email and it authenticates you in S4 Public with whatever other authentication attribute, boom, you have a clash. So you need to harmonize that under what we've introduced in Intelligent Enterprise to harmonize user identities, and then this cross stuff in Joule also works. Just to give you this one specific example.
I'll
Hope that
confess
answered the question.
I'm not entirely sure I understood the question or the answer there, I have to say, but I hope.
Okay. It was also it's a good question because it was my home turf in the past. So yeah. So I hope whoever asked the question, I answered it.
I'm sure that Adrian's nodding sagely in his chair there, completely across all that. Look, it's 10 minutes to. I think we've probably got time for one more. Yes, go ahead, Karen.
We have Mian.
Yeah, look, Mian from Ream Australia. Before I ask the question, is that identity harmonization apply whether you run identity on Neo or Cloud Foundry?
Cloud Foundry. You need to use the the IIS service on Cloud Foundry.
Yeah. So look, what I wanted to ask about more about developer tools and tools for IT folks that SAP has, like cloud application lifecycle management that has come up, and recently for enterprise services on me.sap.com. Is there any plan to have a Joule-like interface or a chatbot there or something that can help developers even on Business Application Studio? That'd be very useful.
Not 100% sure about the question. You now said SAP for me and cloud application lifecycle management, but in the same way as build code, which is a different area. So you expect
something like Joule or cloud application lifecycle management?
Okay, so we have not there. Per my knowledge, there's no plan to introduce Joule right now in Calm for build code. Joule has been shipped in the first version to generate cloud application programming model applications. That's the short answer. I'm not sure how you relate those two at this point in time.
Okay.
So build code, yes, Joule is already available. I'm not aware of any plans. I would have to check.
All right, awesome, awesome. Do we have, I think we've probably got time for just one more call, if anyone wants to jump in quickly. I think we may finally have satisfied everyone's curiosity, but oh no, we've got we do have a hand raised in room 1RL1. Go on, guys, you're lucky last.
We can't help asking questions. Sorry. So thank you for your time.
Oh, please.
I guess as customers, there's various states as we move either to our own hyperscalers or moving through to the RISE offerings that SAP have. You provided a slide which outlined all the AI that you're developing within SAP on the various products within the SAP landscape. How much of that is available for people that are on RISE or not in their own upscale landscape, say Azure, for example, for us?
Yep, it's coming. Maybe it's just me, but it's coming. Maybe can you come closer to the mic a little bit, because it was hard for me to understand. Not sure where the mic is in your room, but so is it about like what you can do?
Yeah,
so it's about what you can do in the RISE.
Yeah, you've outlined a number of initiatives that SAP are doing in AI. My understanding is you're limited in what you can and can't do, depending whether you're on the RISE landscape or whether you've got your own tenancy in, say, Azure and running.
What do you mean, like running your own? So you mean you do on-prem, like on-prem SAP on Azure yourself?
Well, for example, isn't available to everyone, is it?
No, correct. So there are two answers to that. So all the embedded scenarios that we are building, so that are available within the applications, inclusive of Joule, the embedded scenarios, whether, Gen AI scenarios we talked about asset management already. We talked about some of the supply chain scenarios with transportation management, warehouse management, and planning, and so on and so forth. Like the ones that are embedded in the cable only available in the cloud and for RISE. I can talk to why that is. So that's only available in RISE. However, and that's the thing, yes, also with other deployment variants, not RISE, and also older releases. So you could use BTP, the Generative AI Hub, for example, AI Core, to build your own scenarios, because we want to help customers as part of their RISE journey to build already things on BTP, so that we are helping with the RISE journey and reap the benefits of AI already today, while they are still in progress in their specific RISE journey. So the BTP services, if you really use the platform services, they are available also within non-RISE environments, right? But then, of course, you have more projects and you're not benefiting from some of the convenience things or the higher degree of automation that we are specifically building for RISE. And the embedded application scenarios are excluded as well.
Okay, so have you got stuff that you can share with us? What's in, what's out, I guess? You're highlighting.
We can share the I don't know, compatibility matrix if you like. Yeah, we can do that.
Custom applications across the BTP landscape. If we could apply Joule across those custom applications, that would be pretty exciting to us.
Okay.
Well, there we go. I think we've got an excited crew in room 1RRL1, which is awesome. So I'm going to say I did reserve the final question for myself, and I'm going to ask you. Look forwards. I know you're a visionary on this stuff. 5-10 years into the future, using all this AI stuff. What does the future of business applications look like, Philipp? What's your vision for this stuff?
Well, we talked already about the user experience piece of it, right? In terms of that we believe we fundamentally will change the way how we interact, right? And work with the system in a way more effective way. And at the same time, so I think to the discussion earlier, we will see way more applications to disappear, right? In favor of a more conversational experience that is more targeted and more tailored, right, to the individual user than these rather generic applications. And then, of course, secondly, we will also see a fundamental change, right, in the business processes themselves, right? So because at the moment, of course, we're talking about individual scenarios here and there. But look, at the end of the day, at the moment we are I'll give you just one example. At the moment, right, we are generating the RFP, right, and the corresponding documents on the buyer and the supplier side. But of course, you can also imagine a world where this is done. I mean, why are you still generating it, right? And you could already do that in an at least highly automated fashion, and then just bring up like the disagreement or the proposals, right, on what and only bring up the differences, right, to fill that out and avoid all this tedious work. And that has, of course, a huge impact on the business process, for example, right? If you have transactions between buyers and suppliers on RFPs and RFQs and what have you. So this, I think there will just fundamental change there, but it will still take time because obviously all the capabilities are first being built out. Right? I see now a phase one where there's I always call it like these productivity and efficiency gains, but then we will enter a next phase, right, of efficiencies that are being done because the AI can actually talk with each other. And then we will see a much bigger impact also on the business processes themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. Love the vision. Look, we'll get you out of here now. Thank you so much for getting up and spending an hour with us and sharing all your insights and perhaps oversharing a little bit on a couple of questions. But I'm sure a whole lot of people appreciate that massively as well. Look, let me encourage everyone on the call. Let's give Philipp a virtual round of applause. Awesome stuff. Thank you very, very much indeed. We will cut you free to get on with the rest of your day. Thanks again, sir. Very much indeed. Hope to see and chat with you again very, very soon. Take care. Good day.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me again. Thank you. Bye-bye.